So Walmart fires an employee after the employee took emergency time off to resolve a medical complication with his son. And because of that, they're now facing a lawsuit that accuses him of a pattern and practice of terminating employees for taking necessary time off to attend to family emergencies. Joining me now to talk about this is Farron Cousins, executive editor of the Trial Lawyer magazine. Farron, so what's the story behind this lawsuit? It sounds like it could be a problem if it continues to grow.
Absolutely. So basically, we had this Walmart cashier, a man named Anthony Kelly in Tallahassee, had to call in sick to Walmart because his son was throwing up blood. It wasn't a runny nose. I mean, the son had a very serious illness, takes him to the hospital. Anthony, as far as we've seen, followed the procedure on how to call in sick and report that you were not coming into work that day. He gets back to work. He goes 2 weeks. They don't say anything. Then finally one day he can't clock in, asked the higher-ups what's happening, and they said, well, it's because of that absence you had. And it gets even worse because it was a legitimate medical excuse. He said, I'll provide you a doctor's note if that will excuse it. Manager says, absolutely, do that. Comes back the next day with a doctor's note. Manager still says, sorry, can't help you, you're still fired.
Okay, well, let me break this down. First of all, most states have a fire at will status. That means unless you have a contract, the company can fire at will. But in this case, I think what this lawyer is going to find is if you look behind it, when the employee is hired, they're told there are certain procedures we have in place, as you point out, for emergency situations. And here it is. You do A, B, and C. And if you do A, B, and C, you're in compliance with what the company's doing. And then in this situation, we don't know, but it sounds like he's in compliance. The interesting thing is it happens 2 weeks later after he brings in a doctor's note that says, yeah, this child might have died but for this. I'm interested in the notion of a pattern in practice. We've seen this with Walmart before. There's so many Walmarts. There's so much commerce that takes place with Walmart that you start seeing patterns in practice. Like we had the case where they weren't clocking. If an employee had the right to clock out, Walmart says, no, you may not clock out even if you're on a break. So they had the employee actually working during the break and not being paid for it. So that was a pattern in practice. We're going to find this here?
I believe so. In fact, at the particular Walmart where Anthony worked, there's already an instance of one employee being fired for something similar, having to take time off for a family emergency. But then later on, after they had already fired that employee, they came back and reinstated him. But it is something we've seen, stories that we've heard about from Walmarts all over this country. You know, they're not necessarily really adhering to FMLA laws, the Family and Medical Leave Act. And a lot of states are letting it go. They're not doing anything on the federal side or the state side to help enforce these laws. And so that's why lawsuits like this, like Mr. Kelly has filed, is about all they have left to really get these laws that are in place actually used.
So what will happen on this is if there's any ground gained in this, then other people are going to hear the story. And then all of a sudden you start seeing this pattern in practice like we saw where Walmart had employees working during their punch-out time and weren't being paid to work, but they were having to work anyway. That was a pattern, but it emerged the same way. It emerged with just a few employees coming forward, and then the pattern in practice starts developing. You start seeing it happen all over the country. I think that's what you're trying to suggest here.
Oh, absolutely. I think once this case really starts getting attention, the media starts paying attention, we're going to see a lot more people come forward and say, wait a minute, me and my family, and I lost my job because I had to care for my children.
My take is Walmart better get in front of this one.